A flying taxi crashing through neon chaos, an opera that screams the future, and a hero and villain who never meet. The Fifth Element was beautiful madness wrapped in controversy. The Fifth Element transcended typical science fiction. It was stylish anarchy, a film that thrust a hovering cab into a fluorescent battlefield and transformed operatic music into something futuristic. Yet beneath its extravagant wardrobe and interstellar pandemonium, the production was anything but smooth. The screenplay took years to complete. The antagonist and protagonist never appeared in the same scene together, and the actor initially cast as Ruby Road refused to don the iconic hairpiece. Here are 20 bizarre behind-the-scenes facts about The Fifth Element, including a diva's outfit tailored for Luc Besson's wife, created just as his heart was wandering elsewhere. Number 1. The Boy Who Dreamed a Galaxy. Before the spaceships and laser battles, there was just a teenager in a small French town, Luc Besson. He didn't come from artists or filmmakers. He had solitude and imagination. He was raised by parents who ran a scuba diving club, often leaving him alone with his thoughts and the vast, quiet depths of the ocean. It took over 20 years for that kid's imagination to become one of the priciest sci-fi movies ever made. During those 2 decades, Besson directed other films, honed his craft, and waited for technology and budgets to catch up with his vision. He carried those notebooks everywhere, adding details, refining characters, expanding the mythology. But under the noise and color, you can still feel it. That lonely boy writing himself a way out, one flying taxi at a time. Number 2. The 400-page universe. Besson didn't write a script. He wrote a universe. The first draft was over 400 pages long, a sprawling trilogy filled with alien politics, full languages, ancient wars, and maps of entire civilizations that never made it to film. He constructed a deep, functioning history for the Earth and beyond. The initial scope was so immense, it was planned as 2 separate films and a graphic novel series. What we saw in theaters? Just a fragment of the cosmos he built. The rest still sits in sketchbooks and his memory. Galaxies waiting for a sequel that never came. Besson has hinted in interviews that he still has the notebooks, that the other stories remain intact, waiting for the right moment or the right technology to bring them to life. It's a bittersweet legacy. A universe so vast that only a fraction could fit on screen. Number 3. Corbin Dallas, version 1. Before Bruce Willis stepped into that flying cab, there was another name on the list, Mel Gibson. After Braveheart, he was Hollywood's golden ticket, a bankable leading man who had the grit and the star power. Studios loved the idea. Gibson could sell tickets worldwide, and his action credentials were unimpeachable. When Willis said yes, Corbin Dallas became more than a soldier. He became everyman courage, tired, sarcastic, unlucky, yet heroic in the mess of it all. Willis brought a weary humor to the role, a sense that Dallas had seen too much and expected too little. If Gibson had taken it, the movie might have been darker, more serious, perhaps more conventionally heroic. With Willis, it learned how to smile in the apocalypse, to find absurd humor in the face of annihilation, to treat the end of the world like just another bad day at the office. Number 4. The Villain Who Did a Favor. Gary Oldman didn't audition. He didn't even understand the plot. He joined because Besson had produced his passion project, Kneel by Mouth, a searing, non-commercial drama that Oldman had poured his heart into. A brutal, autobiographical look at domestic violence and working-class British life that no major studio would touch. He wore a half-helmet that made him look like a fascist hairdresser, spoke with an oil baron twang borrowed from Texas industrialists, and became one of the strangest, most delightfully over-the-top villains of the decade, Jean-Baptiste Zorg. He later admitted he didn't get the film at all, thinking it was utterly bizarre, and wondering if something had been lost in translation. But audiences? They loved every manic theatrical second. His twitchy energy, his casual cruelty, his plastic face shield. It all somehow worked. Zorg became iconic precisely because Oldman played him with complete commitment despite understanding almost nothing about the larger story. Number 5. The 8,000 Woman Search. 8,000 actresses auditioned for Lilu. Some famous, some not. The search felt like an industry-wide dragnet, looking for the impossible combination of innocence and raw power, of childlike wonder and warrior ferocity. Elizabeth Berkley gave it her best shot. hoping to reinvent herself after the showgirl's disaster. Others brought accents and alien poise, contorting themselves into what they imagined an ultimate being might look like. She didn't just wear the costume, she became it. The orange straps, the wide eyes, the energy, instantly iconic. Out of thousands, she was the only one who felt like the essential, perfect element. Her physical grace, combined with a total lack of Hollywood polish, made her appear truly uncontaminated by cynicism or calculation. At just 21 years old, she brought an authenticity to Lilu that transcended performance. It felt like discovery, like Besson had found an actual alien and convinced her to be in his movie. Number 6. The Blue Diva and The Broken Marriage. That unforgettable blue alien singer, the Diva Plava Laguna, was played by Mai Wen, Besson's then-wife. Under layers of foam and paint, she delivered a performance that stopped the crew cold. The opera scene took weeks to film, with Mai Wen spending hours in the makeup chair each day, her body encased in the custom-molded costume that restricted her breathing and movement. By the end of shooting, his marriage had quietly ended. The woman who saved the universe on screen was watching her own world fall apart off it. And if you rewatch the opera scene, you can feel both women glowing. One ethereal, one human, both heartbroken in different ways. The diva's costume, designed by Gautier, was meant to be the exact dimensions of Mai Wen's body. A final beautiful garment created just for her by her husband's production. It was supposed to be a gift, a showcase, a monument to her beauty. Instead, it became a kind of elaborate goodbye, a stunning artistic statement that marked the end of their relationship. Number 7. A Language of Love. Lilu didn't just sound alien, she spoke a real invented language. Over 400 words created by Besson and refined with Jovovich. It had its own syntax, grammar, and even a vocabulary based on fundamental human concepts. The language, which they called the divine language, was constructed with linguistic principles in mind, not just random syllables strung together. It outlasted their romance. Even today, fans can attempt to learn the basics of the divine language thanks to the detailed notes they created. The language has a kind of poetic simplicity to it. Words blend and flow together, and the grammar prioritizes emotional truth over technical precision. Every syllable you hear in the movie is authentic. Not random sounds, but a language born out of both creativity and intimacy. A linguistic love letter that survived long after the love itself had faded. Number 8. The Real Action Hero. Mila didn't want stunt doubles. She wanted to fight like Lilu. She trained endlessly, learned complex choreography, wire work, and hand-to-hand combat. She worked with the stunt team 6 days a week for 2 months before filming even began. She was dedicated to making Lilu's movements look ragged, desperate, and powerful. Not the polished martial arts of traditional action films, but something more primal and improvisational. Her determination to execute the complex, jerky fight sequence earned her immense respect from the stunt coordinator, who admitted she was faster and more precise than most seasoned male action leads. You can see it in her eyes during those sequences. Real exhaustion, real pain, real triumph. That's not acting. That's actually fighting for your life, take after take, until perfection emerged from genuine physical struggle. Number 9. Zorg's Real Flamethrower. Remember Zorg's ridiculous all-in-one weapon? The ZF-1? The flamethrower actually worked. The prop team built it functional. Too functional, in fact. They were so excited about creating a practical effect that they didn't fully consider the consequences of having a real flamethrower on a soundstage filled with elaborate, expensive sets. After the incident, strict safety protocols were implemented. Every time the weapon was used, fire marshals had to be present, extinguishers at the ready. Gary Oldman, who had to wield the thing, was reportedly nervous about pointing it at anything, even when the scene called for casual destruction. The weapon, called a Zorg ZF-1, has since been recreated by countless prop makers and cosplayers, but none dare make the terrifying flamethrower component functional. It's become one of the most iconic fictional weapons in cinema, right alongside the lightsaber and the phaser. Number 10. Melting aliens. Those bulky golden Mondo Shawan aliens in the opening? The actors inside were boiling alive. The suits weighed 80 pounds and had no cooling systems. No ventilation beyond what naturally occurred. Their slow movements weren't for drama. They were just trying not to pass out from the suffocating heat. Inside that beautiful golden exterior was a nightmare of foam, latex, and human suffering. Between takes, the actors would lie down with industrial fans pointed at their open collars, trying desperately to cool down before the next setup. They couldn't stay in the suits for more than 20 minutes at a time, which made shooting those opening sequences incredibly time-consuming. The experience was so miserable that when Besson asked if any of them would be willing to return for additional shots months later, they all refused. The scenes had to be completed with what they'd already filmed. Number 11. Ruby Rhodes' Cage of Couture. Jean-Paul Gaultier designed Ruby's costume to be outrageous and impossible to move in. It weighed nearly 50 pounds. A shimmering prison of platinum netting, faux animal print, and structured pieces that dug into Tucker's skin. Chris Tucker couldn't sit or bend, so between takes he'd just lean on walls, trying to catch his breath inside the suffocating volume of fabric and metal. Still, he delivered one of the loudest, funniest, and most flamboyant performances in sci-fi history, sweating and screaming through glitter-coated exhaustion to become the most unforgettable intergalactic shock jock ever conceived. The clothes were purposefully restrictive. Gaultier wanted Ruby to look like a trapped, exotic bird, all noise and no substance. Tucker has said in interviews that wearing that costume was one of the most physically challenging things he's ever done as an actor, harder than any stunt or fight scene in the Rush Hour films. Quote at him on the street. The suffering produced something transcendent, a character so unique, so memorable, that he became the film's beating, sequined heart. Number 12. The explosion was real. When the Divas concert hall detonates, that's not CGI. It was a real full-scale explosion filmed once in a single take. At the time, it was the largest indoor blast ever filmed in the United Kingdom, a controlled detonation so massive it required months of planning and preparation. No room for error. One chance. One perfect detonation. One perfect chaos. When the smoke cleared and everyone confirmed the cameras had captured it, the entire crew erupted in applause. They'd pulled it off. A practical explosion so large and perfect that it would anchor one of the film's most emotional sequences. In an era increasingly dominated by digital effects, this commitment to practical destruction feels almost quaint, but the result on screen is undeniable. You can feel the reality of it, the weight and heat and genuine danger. No computer could replicate what they achieved in that single, terrifying, perfect moment. Number 13. The hero and villain who never met. Corbin Dallas and Zorg, Bruce Willis and Gary Oldman, share zero screen time. Not because of scheduling, but by design. Besson wanted their conflict to happen indirectly. Through cause and effect, Zorg's actions create the peril that Dallas must navigate. Two massive, opposing forces colliding without ever touching, operating in parallel narratives that intersect only through consequence. Besson believed that by keeping them apart, he elevated Zorg from a generic adversary to a true force of cosmic entropy, operating solely through destruction. Zorg doesn't need to confront Dallas because Dallas is irrelevant to him, just another speck of life in the way of profit and chaos. This creates a unique dynamic where the hero's victory isn't over the villain directly, but over the villain's philosophy and legacy. It's a more mature, more unsettling form of conflict, and it gives the film a sophistication that typical action movies lack. Number 14. A bright future. Most science fiction hides in shadows, using darkness to convey fear and grim futures. Blade Runner, Alien, The Matrix. All masterpieces, all drenched in darkness and rain and industrial grime. Besson wanted sunlight. He filled the movie with color, daylight, open skies, and blinding explosions. He said the future shouldn't be gray. It should be alive, a chaotic, dazzling place. And so, against every convention, the fifth element glowed instead of brooded, setting a high contrast standard for the next generation of space operas. This commitment to primary colors and pop art design was a deliberate rejection of the grim industrial aesthetic of Blade Runner and Alien. Cinematographer Thierry Arbogast worked closely with Besson to achieve this look, fighting against the natural instinct to make sci-fi serious through darkness. The result is a film that looks like nothing else in the genre. Optimistic despite the apocalypse, colorful despite the violence. A future that, despite all its flaws, you might actually want to visit. Number 15. When Prince Said Non. Originally, the character of Ruby Rhod was written for Prince. Besson was a massive fan and tailored the role for the musician's eccentric hypersexual energy, his ability to command attention through pure charisma and strangeness. Prince liked the script until he saw the wardrobe sketches. Enter Chris Tucker, who turned the rejected royal into pure hyperactive genius. Tucker, fresh off Friday and relatively unknown, had no such reservations. He embraced the madness completely, the costume becoming a kind of second skin despite its weight and restriction. But deep down, you can still feel it. Ruby was meant for royalty, for someone who could bring musical genius to the performance alongside the comedy. Besson has said he sometimes wonders what Prince's Ruby would have been like. Probably quieter, more sexual, more musical, less manic. Different, certainly. But Tucker's version became so iconic, so perfectly calibrated to the film's chaotic energy, that it's hard to imagine anyone else in the role. Number 16. Booed at Cannes. France's biggest movie premiere. And it got booed. The Cannes Film Festival, cinema's most prestigious venue, the place where artistic cinema is celebrated and commercial film is often dismissed. The highbrow French critics called it silly and senseless, dismissing the action-packed spectacle as American junk food cinema, a betrayal of French artistic principles. Now it's a cult classic, beloved because it's too weird, too loud, too alive. It was an instant success outside of France, proving that Besson was right to aim for an international rather than purely French audience. The Cannes booing has become part of the film's legend, proof that sometimes the critics get it spectacularly wrong, that popularity and artistic merit aren't mutually exclusive, and that a film can be both silly and profound, nonsensical and meaningful, commercial and visionary. The Fifth Element didn't need critical approval to become immortal. It just needed people to see it, to feel it, to let it explode across their senses in all its ridiculous, glorious excess. Number 17. Fashioned from a Thousand Worlds. Gaultier didn't design costumes. He designed civilizations. Over 1,000 unique outfits, each with its own logic and texture, created by one of the world's most eccentric designers. This wasn't a wardrobe department churning out generic sci-fi jumpsuits. This was a couture house creating an entire future fashion industry from scratch. Gaultier and Besson worked side by side for months, ensuring that the fashion was never just clothes, but a fundamental part of the world building. Gaultier sketched hundreds of designs, many of which never made it to screen but informed the overall aesthetic. He created a visual hierarchy where military uniforms had certain shapes, civilian clothes had others, and truly alien garments followed completely different rules. The result is a film where you could take any single frame, focus on any person in the background, and find a thoughtfully designed costume that could anchor its own fashion show. It's maximalism elevated to art, proof that production design isn't just about the leads. It's about creating a complete, believable world where every single person looks like they belong. Number 18. Spaceships of Myth. Those massive golden Mondo Shawan ships at the start weren't random. Their shapes echoed Egyptian temples and sun symbols, with curves and proportions that suggested ancient architecture rendered in metal. Besson imagined ancient gods turned to metal. The idea that maybe the pyramids weren't built for aliens, but by them. The design team spent months developing the Mondo Shawan aesthetic, researching ancient civilizations, and trying to imagine what a truly advanced race might consider beautiful. They decided that ultra-advanced beings wouldn't abandon ornamentation for pure function. Instead, they'd merge the two, creating technology that was simultaneously tool and temple. Every curve of those golden ships has meaning. The circular motifs represent cosmic cycles. The angular elements suggest hieroglyphic language. The overall golden sheen implies beings who view themselves as solar divinities. It's world building through pure visual design, telling you everything you need to know about the Mondo Shawan, their age, their philosophy, their relationship to humanity, without a single word of dialogue. Number 19. The city was hand-built. The flying cars and skyscrapers of New York in the 23rd century. Mostly miniatures. These intricately detailed models were hand-painted, filmed with motion control rigs, layered with light and digital polish. Before CGI ruled the world, these artists built the future out of cardboard, glue, and imagination, giving the towering city a palpable physical weight. The flying cars themselves were puppeted on nearly invisible wires, each movement requiring precise coordination between multiple operators. A single shot of traffic might involve a dozen people controlling different vehicles, all timed to create the chaotic ballet of aerial congestion. The motion control cameras would make multiple passes, filming different layers that would be composited together in post-production. What's remarkable is how much of this work is invisible. The audience sees a living, breathing city and assumes it's CGI, but it's paint and plastic and foam, animated by human hands, lit by practical lights, filmed with painstaking precision. That tangibility gives the city a reality that pure CGI often lacks. You can feel the weight of those buildings, the depth of those canyons of concrete and glass. Number 20. The most expensive French movie ever. It was a French film, shot in English, made for a global crowd. Besson knew his movie was too strange to survive at home, so he cast American stars, hired British crews, and filmed at Pinewood Studios in London. The budget ballooned to over $90 million, an astronomical sum for a non-American production in the mid-1990s. It worked. It became France's biggest international hit at the time, a French dream translated into a Hollywood language, showing that scale and ambition knew no national borders. It was a financial gamble that paid off, proving that a director's uncompromising vision could indeed transcend cultural boundaries. The film grossed over $260 million worldwide, a massive success that vindicated every risk Besson had taken. What began with Luc Besson at age 16 became a story that never stopped growing, now celebrated in video games, fan tattoos, and conventions. This sci-fi cult film's power comes not from perfection, but from an unyielding imagination. If The Fifth Element is still a favorite of yours, comment below and tell us which wild, rule-breaking film we should dive into next.